Welcome to the Candidate Forum sponsored by the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods. Our forum today is being recorded in the city boardroom at City Hall, and we thank the city government for making it available to us. The broadcast of this forum, as well as the forums for the other awards and the mayoral candidates, will be broadcast on cable channel TV 11 several times before the November 6th election, so that all the voters can take in the information at their leisure. To avoid bias, we ask our question panel members to work outside their ward, so none of the people asking questions are from Ward 1. And all the candidates are here today except for two. Mr. Robert Webb has been cannot attend today because of a schedule conflict, and candidate Mr. Herbert Broadway has declined to attend today. We've got 4 questions for all the candidates for Ward 1. Each candidate will have a minute to open, meaning to make your own statement, and 1 minute to close, and 1 minute to answer 4 questions. 4 questions will be asked of each candidate. The same question will be given in turn to each candidate in that race. For fairness, the one to reply first, and we'll shift for each question so that our first question is going to go to Mr. Atkins, and then our second question, the first one to answer that will go to Mr. Frazier, and so forth, and we'll work down so that not the same people aren't the first ones always to answer the question. So those being the ground rules, I'm going to start with Mr. Atkins and ask that you give an opening statement on your behalf for 1 minute.
Thank you for having me. My name is Ted Atkins. I'm a candidate for Ward 1, City of Little Rock Board of Directors. I want to tell you that I'm a retired Little Rock police officer for 33 years. I am blessed to be able to serve this city, but I don't think my journey's done. My journey's just begun for a different career path. So now I ask that you think about when you make your decision about who is going to be representing your ward, your city, make the best one. Do it by heart, not by your party, because we've gotten away from things, and it's time for us to get back to the basics. I want to say that I think I'm qualified is the reason why, because I've been in the workings of the city of Little Rock. I know what they do and what they don't do. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Frazier, 1 minute to open.
I'm Brian Frazier. I'm a 20-year resident of Little Rock. I was born and raised in Hot Springs by educators. I'm a former educator myself. I taught for 5 years at Pulaski County Special School District, North Pulaski High School, photography and art. I'm an artist by trade. Got my community experience at KABF 88.3. I ran the station for 4.5-ish years. And now I'm working with veterans and the homeless. I'm a advisory board member for the Salvation Army. We're working on some amazing new projects that will be announced very soon with the Army. And now with City Director Cappy Peck and I have brought a program called Operation Song that we are writing songs with and for U.S. veterans. And it's a therapy program that will also be officially announced very soon. It's been announced online, but so put all that together, it comes down to one question for me. Is Little Rock going to be a part-time town or full-time city? We're going to work to make it a full-time city.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Jackson.
Good morning. My name is Ronnie Jackson, and I'm running as Ward Director for Ward 1, and I would appreciate your support. I've been in Little Rock all of my life primarily. I grew up in the Highland Court area and also lived in the East Little Rock area where I currently reside. I'm currently president of Neighborhood Connections and also president of our East Little Rock Neighborhood Association. And so I bring to this ward experience working with the community, work with Keep Little Rock Beautiful, working in different capacities to help move our city forward. And I'm running because I want to see a full, diverse community where we're all working together, living and working and playing in an area that is safe and clean for our citizens of Little Rock. Thank you.
City Director Irma Hendricks.
Good morning. I'm Irma Hendricks, running again for City Board. I am a native of Little Rock, born a stone's throw from the state capitol. I intend to continue to do the work that I've done for the past 12 years without question. And I think that I'm the only female on this board as a candidate, and I hope that that has an impact. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Curtis Johnson.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone seated here today, especially the folks that had the courage enough to run for Ward 1 in this election cycle. My name is Curtis Johnson. I'm a resident originally from Little Rock, Arkansas. I currently reside here in the city in Ward 1. I've spent the last 13 years revitalizing part of the city in Arkansas Baptist College. As the executive director for operations, I currently hold the role of executive director of operations for Pulaski County Special School District. It is my goal and my intent to represent all of us, not the least of us. That's my purpose for running. Thank you.
Mr. Danny Lewis.
Good morning. My name is Danny Lewis, and I am a lifelong resident of the city of Little Rock. I'm running for Ward 1 City Director because Ward 1 needs someone who cares and has new ideas and works well with others. I'm a husband, a father, an associate pastor, a former Little Rock firefighter. I currently serve as chair of the Capital Zoning Mansion Advisory. I'm a former treasurer of DNA. I'm a former treasurer and vice president of East Little Rock Neighborhood Association. I'm an advocate. I'm a change agent. I get involved. I'm a unifier. I can, and I will work across all lines. As an entrepreneur and a hard worker, I get things done. I have developed residential and commercial properties, and every neighborhood deserves a director who cares about all the constituents of Ward 1.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Greg Henderson.
Thank you. I'm Greg Henderson, running for Ward 1, like everybody else up here. This is a great crew of people, and I'm happy to be a part of this. I think that any of us would make a great city director. What I'm going to do different, though, is that I'm going to look at seeing how we can overcome the stagnant issue of Little Rock. Right now, Little Rock is stagnant. There's a lot of growth not going. We're seeing a lot of the people who would normally choose Little Rock as their home now are looking at places like Northwest Arkansas and other areas around the state. Little Rock needs to continue to be a beacon of hope for people around the state, a place where people of all ethnicities, all genders, all sexual orientations, and anything else can come here and feel like they can build a great life for themselves. And so that's what I'm going to do, working with small businesses, working with regional areas to make Little Rock and Central Arkansas a great place for everybody to be going forward for the future. Because right now, this race is about the future of Little Rock.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Henderson. Now we'll get to the first of our 4 questions. I'm going to call on Robert Walker for that first question.
Your first question. Adding hiking trails and bicycle paths has become popular. Will you advocate funding more trails?
Mr. Frazier.
My answer is absolutely. Not too long ago, we were riding our bikes, as we do a lot, on the North Little Rock side, and it's shocking how nice it is. It's a beautiful part of the river trail, and Little Rock needs a lot of work on their side of the trail. It's dangerous, it's broken up. I would definitely advocate fully for that.
Okay. Mr. Jackson.
Certainly. Yes, I would advocate for more trails. As I ride my bike, like Brian said, along the trails behind the North Little Rock side, it certainly needs something on the Little Rock side, especially when you get down to returning and you cross over the Big Dam Bridge and you come back and you're over by Dillard's along Cantrell Road over in that area. There needs to be a trail that leads back to downtown, to the Clinton Bridge and to other areas in downtown, so certainly.
Okay. Director Hendricks.
I think about blight. You talk about bicycle lanes. We need to look at the blight in the city. That would be on my list, but not the top.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson.
As a former Razorback and Hog, it's outdoors is a big piece for me. And I cycle, I hike, and I walk the city. And I have for the last several years done just that. As a half marathoner, it's not a running piece for me, it's more of a walking piece for me. based on needs and playing football for as long as I have. It is important that it's safe and it's practical the way that we invest as it becomes recreational for our city. Folks are out on bikes. I'm out with them. We need to support that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Danny Lewis.
Yes, sir. Hiking and biking trails are important economically, and also for the health of the individuals who use those trails. But safety is needed. When you have cars, you cannot have cars and pedestrians and bikes all gathered. We need to work to improve that. So yes, I will work to improve biking and hiking.
Mr. Henderson.
Absolutely, yes. If you look, I do economic development around the state, working with a lot of restaurants, small businesses, things like that. If you look in northwest Arkansas as an example of the Fayetteville Greenway area that goes from Bentonville all the way down to Fayetteville, you just look at the number of businesses that have popped up along that. It encourages economic development and economic diversity all along that from the full stretch of it. Recently, we missed out on an opportunity to bring some of the Little Rock trails all the way down to Hot Springs. That was unfortunate. There's also big gaps in it. Not only are there big gaps in what's here in Little Rock, there's inconsistencies. Sometimes you'll have people having a dedicated trail, and all of a sudden they're moved off in the middle of traffic. It's got to be some kind of consistent plan, and we need to implement city resources behind that to make sure that the trails are at least consistent throughout the city and connect to the further region to bring in that economic development.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ted Atkins.
It's a concern. It's a priority, but it's not my major priority. But I'd say let's think about this. We're comparing other cities to our city. This is the capital. Little Rock is the capital of North Little Rock, Fayetteville. Why are we behind? We need to actually work on everything that we can to bring it all together where people want to come to Little Rock. And that's including biking. That's including the BMX tournaments. That's in places that we need to think about where we're going to put the bikers. But we haven't done that. We're always behind somebody else and trying to go behind somebody else's ideas. It's time for us to lead instead of follow.
Okay. I'm now going to turn to Mary Hinthorn, one of our coalition members, for the next question.
Little Rock police are assigned to community policing on and off, leaving advocates doubtful this approach truly supported. Do you believe in community policing? How would you implement community policing?
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, I believe in community policing, and I think it needs work. And the reason I say that is that in the East Little Rock area where I currently reside, there's not a lot of community policing going on in that area. And so, yes, I believe it's important. We can see it where there's policing, that they have the COP police officers and they're doing things in the community. We want to invite that for all communities, not just some communities. We need it in the East Little Rock. They need it in the South End. They need it in the Love Neighborhood Association area, as well as the Goodwill Neighborhood Association, where they're trying to get more police to even just ride through their areas. So yes, I would.
Director Hendricks.
Community policing, I do support, and I think that you may be aware that I attempted to get 2 ordinances passed that would also provide that the police would live in the city of Little Rock, and I think that would be a great asset.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Curtis Johnson.
I do support community policing and have exercised community policing in my capacity as the Director of Public Safety for Arkansas Baptist College, and in my national capacity as the current National President for Historically Black Colleges Chiefs of Police for the Nation. Around Arkansas Baptist College during the 13 years that I was there, at one point in time the crime rate was down at 70%. That was achieved not by driving cars through a neighborhood, but you have to get out and actually meet your neighbors. We knew most of the neighbors around the neighborhood on a first-name basis, and when we had issues that took place, they pretty much called us directly. It helped us basically, 1, respond to their needs a little bit quicker, but then 2, it bridged the relationship that had already been severed. So I very much support community policing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Danny Lewis.
Yes, sir. COPP policing is a great idea. It leads to getting to know the people that you are policing. That says relationship building. That is much needed. So yes, I agree and we'll support it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Greg Henderson.
Yes, if you look at the work that Tommy Norman has done up in North Little Rock and the attention that's brought to that police department and the community involvement that's gone around, there's no reason why we don't have those figures like that in Little Rock. We've got to continue to support community policing, but the other thing we have to do is we have to make sure that we never get into this problem again where we have fewer officers than we actually need in the city. It can't just be one of those things where we come in at the time of a crisis and try to staff up and spend millions and millions of dollars on advertising campaigns to staff up. That needs to be going on all the time. That way they have the bandwidth and aren't doubling down on shifts to actually get out in the community. I think that, yes, having local police officers is great. I think that they should be a part of their community, and I think that we should absolutely encourage that.
Okay. Mr. Ted Atkins.
This is a field I know a little bit about. Community ordering policing is a needed, but how do you do it if you don't have enough personnel to do it? The police department doesn't have enough personnel to actually have everybody in everybody's neighborhood, but there's so many officers that would love to ride a bike in your neighborhood, come door to door, come to talk to you, but they're so short-staffed. If you're short-staffed, how do you expect somebody to come out there and actually have a conversation with you and actually come out and meet and greet you and come to events? When you're short on officers, you don't have enough personnel to do it. We need to think about getting to the DARE program. Why are we not getting back into schools with the DARE and drug-free? There's so many programs we neglected and we just push it off to the side. But community ordering policing is needed and is required, and it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brian Frazier.
I would agree. I would support it fully. The COPP officers I've worked with personally, on a personal level, working with the Salvation Army recently, have been wonderful in the work that they do. It's a very focused program, but again, it is about numbers, and they tell me every time on a personal level, I would love to help you with this. If this is happening at this time, this is my schedule. There's not enough people to cover A, B, and C. Clearly, there's a numbers problem. But yes, COPP is a good thing.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to return to Mr. Robert Walker for our next question.
Scientists just issued the warning that climate change is coming faster than realized. They called on governments and individuals to change habits. Individuals are urged to drive electric cars or use public transit or conduct business by video conference or add home insulation to cut heating and cooling consumption. The new Nobel Prize for Economics winners examined unintended effects from economic activity and how they affect growth in the long term. If elected, how do you think Little Rock functions will be changed 10 years from now?
Director Hendricks,
Are you kidding?
congratulations, you've got the question.
I just said to myself, are you kidding? 10 years from now? Really, it's something that I'm not interested in at this point. I think that this city has other things that we need to be talking about rather than an electric car. So that's my comment. I don't have a habit of, replying or responding to something that I have no interest in.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Curtis Johnson.
In regards to this question, I think it's important to realize that standards for building and construction are changing as far as our industry and our buildings go. A lot of buildings now are being LEED certified or LEED certified to ensure that they're economically efficient as far as how they run. In regards to our infrastructure and greenhouse gas and that kind of thing from a scientific perspective, I do agree we've got some issues and we've got to turn that around. I will support and be very supportive of our industry, especially industrialized areas, as far as things that we can revamp to basically ensure that we're doing our part as a city. I will also support a light rail city or light rail program between Pine Bluff, Conway, maybe Hot Springs to eliminate some of the traffic flow that comes through the city, giving people different options, especially students who are engaged in college, an opportunity to come to the city to work and basically be able to get affordable transportation back. Just some of my thoughts to help reduce the traffic flow, the gas emissions, and those things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Danny Lewis.
Carbon footprint is a real issue. We need to decrease our carbon footprint by solar, thermonuclear. There are so many other forms of energy that we could be possibly using. And yes, it costs money. But biking, and public transit, I would support decreasing our carbon footprint, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Henderson.
We have a real opportunity as a southern state to be a leader in this. Right now, there's no clear leadership in this type of field. If you look at something like Mississippi, they just enacted some laws or tax bases where they're gonna charge people what they would get for operating an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle, trying to compensate for what they're losing in tax revenue off of gasoline tax. We can't go that way. We gotta be the total opposite of that. We have to be more like a California, where it enacts stricter laws than anybody else in the country. And there's a lot of ways we can do that. I worked in manufacturing for 5 years, working with a lot of manufacturers across the state. Generating and trying to recruit clean manufacturers is a big priority. We already have some of that in Little Rock. Thankfully, statewide, we're a little bit of a leader in that. But we need to continue to see how we can be a leader and not just a follower in this. Little Rock, Arkansas, period, typically falls 5-10 years behind national trends. We need to be 5-10 years ahead of trends right now, and it needs to start right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ted Atkins.
Electric cars. We do need to work on that, but has anybody ever really priced how much an electric car is? Way more than some people of low economics can afford. So we're going to press more on the lower economy than we are for people to actually in the higher economy to have an electric car on 12th Street. At the 12th Street substation, prime example, there are 3 electric tanks. There's not an electric car on 12th Street. Your fire department doesn't have an electric car. Your police department doesn't have electric cars. We need to work on our transit system to try to help people, getting people to and from. But right now, I don't see the city doing it. It's time for us to put our footprint somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brian Fraser.
Instead of being the next Austin or the next Nashville or the next this and that, let's be the first Little Rock. I would have to say that first. And I think that begins with sustainability. To have a sustainable city, sustainable full-time city, you have to start with a dense urban development. That's where it is. Dense urban development is more sustainable than a suburban mindset. Right now, with 30 Crossing and some other projects, Little Rock is surrounded by a suburban mindset. What we need is sustainability and an urban mindset to be a full-time city that includes public transit, more biking, more walking, and a dense urban tax base.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Mr. Ronnie Jackson.
Robert has been posing this question on many occasions in our neighborhood connections. But we do need to be more sustainable in our actions. And there are some buildings around Little Rock that have been built, LEED certified. And so we need to support that moving forward and try to make sure that we're doing responsibly what we need to do. As far as recycling, we need to properly recycle things that we have that needs to be recycled. As far as transportation, we need to build a mass transit system that supports Little Rock, North Little Rock, and the surrounding areas to be better at our gas emissions and what have you. There are bike-to-work days that we could take advantage of where you could ride the city bus, street bus, or you can ride your bicycles to work. So there are things that we can do to be more responsible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, I'm going to go for our 4th question to Mary Henthorn.
Little Rock rental housing is 44% of all units, yet the rental inspection program lags far behind getting to only 1,500 units a year when it needs to be 6,000 inspections each year. What would you do to improve this program?
Could we start with Mr. Johnson? So the rental inspection process for the city, you're correct in the statement that we've lacked in that process. You'd also have to take into consideration that we also have a lack of housing based on approximately 8,000 empty lots throughout the city that deserves to have those housing. I think over the last 18 months, 2 years, we've increased the inspection teams, and they're actually starting to do a few more inspections throughout the community, but not nearly enough to do the 6,000 that's probably needed to basically move the city forward. I'm in support of moving that process forward. We have a lot of property owners that want to do the right thing for the city of Little Rock. We should give them the tools to be able to do just that.
Thank you. Mr. Danny Lewis.
Yes, first we need to change the perception of the work that the city does with the owners of these properties. I am a property owner, and my perception has a little been skewed, but from code enforcement to Little Rock Housing Agency, something a little bit softer, and the approach, you get more with honey than you do with vinegar when you be nice to people. That's just my take is thus far. You need to train people, that's necessary, and you need to pay people. You cannot retain good quality people when you're paying them minimum amounts of money. I will work to improve the perception and the overall workings of rental housing inspection.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Henderson.
Yeah, this is a lot of other problems we have in the city. We wait until we have a crisis before we actually try to take action on it. So, I mean, you saw it happen within the police department, it's happening within the fire department, and it's even happening here. So we have to try to approach problems not whenever we're, all of a sudden so many inspections behind, but ahead of time. We need to be proactive in a lot of these measures, this included. I mean, rental property is huge in Little Rock. It's got to continue to be a safe environment for people to rent from and a quality environment for people to rent their own places.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ted Atkins.
It is good to have rental properties, but it's also good for accountability for people that own those rental properties. If they're not accountable for what they've got there on the table, the people in that house are being neglected. If these houses are not being inspected properly by the actual owner and also code enforcement, then we're neglecting the economy. You're neglecting the people that live here. That's what we're all about. It's about our citizens growing and living a healthy life. You talk about code, they don't have enough personnel, but they also need to realize that giving somebody a ticket every time they see them is not the way out. Don't ticket your way out.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brian Fraser.
I would be in favor of safety regulations, looking really closely at what's in place and what could be fixed. I strongly believe that landlords have too much power in this state and in this city. It's shocking, the stories I've heard from renters, friends, and family of what the landlord doesn't have to do. It's shocking. I think we need to look at that first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fraser. Mr. Ronnie Jackson.
Yes, currently we have an ordinance from 1961 that, old ordinance, and I think that we need to revise that ordinance because there are many homes, rental properties that are not being inspected, and I don't believe we have staff to be able to go out and inspect those, and I don't think the owners are taking care of those properties as well. And so what we have is we have abandoned houses, we have houses that, need work, and the owners are not taking care of them. Even those that are being lived in need work. High grass and weeds are around the properties because the renters are not taking care of those properties. Trash receptacles out in front of the house, garbage carts out, shopping carts are out in front of those homes because the owners are absentee. They're not there, they're just collecting rent and letting it maintain itself. So we need more inspections, but we need to look at that ordinance to make sure that we have the staff, one, to do that, as well as do it, get behind it.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Director Hendricks.
I think I can really say to this issue, not the last legislative session, but the one prior to that, I had the state legislator at that time to present an ordinance or a bill to change the rental system as far as the landlord inspections. That was turned down at the state capitol. Here in Little Rock, sitting up here every day, that's an attempt that I have attempted to pursue, is that the landlords are too lax. They allow people to stay in houses that no one should live in. So it has to start here at City Hall with a new ordinance to change the principle or the support, whatever we can get from landlords, because we really don't have it now. In fact, again, we do not have an ordinance to take care of that problem. So it would be left to one of us up here to make that change, and I have attempted and will continue to ask.
Okay, thank you. Okay, time flies. We are now ready for our closing statement. This is your opportunity to sum up your candidacy, your thoughts, and your convictions on why you should be elected to the city board. And we'll begin with Mr. Danny Lewis.
Yes. My name is Danny Lewis, and I'm running for Ward 1 because I love Little Rock. I've lived here my entire life. I want what's great and good for Little Rock, and I am willing to sacrifice and do what is necessary to propel, to move Little Rock forward. Public safety always is number one. Full staffing of police and fire, cultural and diversity training, de-escalation even is also a necessary thing. Retaining schools, getting our schools back in order. I know it's a state level, but it is part of the city of Little Rock. We need to have the school board duly elected by the citizens who pay the taxes. Infrastructure. Let's develop the neighborhoods. You want your tax base? Can you say tax base? Tax base is your neighborhood. If you build in those 8,000 vacant lots, which the majority are in Ward 1, you will have a better tax base. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Okay, Mr. Henderson?
Yeah, I'm Greg Henderson, and it's an honor to run against these gentlemen and my one lady over here who has been great for the city of Little Rock for the last little bit, and I'm very much thankful of her work. The reality is that none of us individually are the best person for this position, not even myself. What we all do is we've all brought very good ideas and very good passions in certain areas. As city director, what I want to do is I want to focus on building coalitions. I don't want to walk into a boardroom and think that my idea is the absolute best idea. I want to get with each and every one of these, each and every one people who take interest in their city and take a passion about something and try to build the best ideas, not my one good idea. And that's what I'm about. I'm about building coalitions. I'm about moving Little Rock forward because we're at a pivotal point and it's going to take all of us, not one of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ted Atkins?
My name is Ted Atkins, and like I said, I'm running for Ward 1, Board of Directors. I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here today. The reason I'm running is because I feel led to run. I don't have to run. I'm retired. I could enjoy myself doing other things. But like I said before, my journey's not over. It's time for this journey to begin. But actions speak louder than words. We could sit up here and try to buy your vote with words. It's time for us to take action. And that's every board of directors, city manager, mayor, and also our city attorney. It's up to you to make that vote. It's up to you to cast that, to change our perception. Time for us to quit being left behind. Too many neighborhoods are being neglected, left behind. Too many people being left behind. We don't think about the 12th Street corridor not having a grocery store. We don't think about people being neglected because they can't get to a grocery store because of our transit system. It's time for us to do something. Actions speak louder than words. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Frazier, your closing statement.
Again, I'm Brian Frazier. I'm a 20-year resident of Little Rock. I'm a former educator, raised by educators. The key word for our campaign has been sustainability. And is Little Rock going to be a full-time city or a part-time town? Sustainability is a key word in that. It has to do with local control of school districts. It has to do with homelessness. It has to do with a dense urban tax base and a mindset that is urban and not suburban. We're a city. We're not a suburb. And there's a suburban mindset that's happening with infrastructure. Projects like 30 Crossing is going to keep us further and further away from that. They say it's a done deal. I agree we need a new bridge, but it could be negotiated better. Part-time town or full-time city? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ronnie Jackson.
Again, I want to thank you all. My name is Ronnie Jackson, and I am running for Ward 1 with the city of Little Rock. And I would appreciate your vote for Ronnie Jackson, and I'm number 4 on your ballot. And I want to work with our community in Ward 1 because I believe that we have a very diverse community there, and I think we can all get together and work together and make better neighborhoods. Our neighborhood associations, we need to look at those because some have fell off due to not having any progress being made, but I think come 2019, we'll have a change, and we'll make change, and we'll work with all of our neighborhoods, all of our neighbors, and that's my theme. all people, all neighborhoods, because that's what I want to do. I want to see us walk down Main Street, walk down 6th Street, walk down 12th Street, and enjoy those areas because they're safe, they're clean, and then look at around our schools. Make sure the homes in the area around our schools are clean and safe so that when kids drive or ride in on the bus or their parents are dropping them off, they have that first appearance means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Hendricks.
Thank you. The thing that I have to say, I think most people know, is that I'm listening to each of my opponents, and they think that it's fun sitting up here, but it's work. You've got 3 at-large members of this board that you have to deal with. So if you think for 1 minute that you can come up here and change something, I've got news for you. I look forward to being reelected as the only female and to continue doing what I have done for the past 14 years without fear of any one person.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Curtis Johnson.
I want to say thank you to the city of Little Rock and all of the folks that represent Ward 1. It has truly been an honor and a privilege to be able to run in this race. Little Rock. The city of Little Rock is a very special place to me in my heart. And this race is not about me. It's about the folks that reside in the city of Little Rock. My life has been built on service. I intend to continue that life of service. I hope that the city of Ward 1 would basically look at me as a candidate for Ward 1. So thank you very much for this simple opportunity to run this race, and I thank the folks that I'm basically running with along this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and thanks to all the Ward 1 candidates. This concludes our discussion and forum for the Ward 1 position on the November 6th ballot. And thanks to all the viewers on Cable Channel 11. These are your Ward 1 candidates. Make sure you go vote on November 6th. Thank you very much.